Trying to, because it's mirrored, so I'm trying to see which way it can.
We are live. Hold on. Let's throw a disclaimer out there.
Of course, unruly curls.
It says live, and this isn't working right here. Tech gremlins.
Tech
But we are
gremlin.
live. We're live and we're here. Apple on the desk. Let's see if at least the banners work. It's not. What? Oh, well, this is Joey Zaza, Sandy from Torre del Viejo. Here we are again. Apple on the desk. Simple as this. Today is about homeschooling or homeschool in general. Not as far as if it's better than regular school. Not what pushed you to up. Oh shit! There it goes again. There goes the. Now everything came up. Warning: anything can fucking happen here. So we're not going to talk about what brought you to homeschooling. If not, what is homeschooling? Where do you go from here? What are the steps? What can we do? Anything you want to start off with?
Hey y'all, Sandy from Torre de Viejo's Apple on the desk. And yeah, I definitely, so homeschooling, I'd like to actually define homeschooling first, in the sense like we're not talking about being at home and doing your virtual schooling like we have done throughout the whole pandemic. A lot of people did 100%.
Homeschooling is not the same as bringing school home.
No, not at all. Not at all. Homeschooling is a whole different beast when it comes to just the method of you getting your education, or your child getting an education. So if you're being homeschooled, that means that you're not following the traditional way of having a teacher inside of a classroom with, or inside of any environment with a group of other kids that are following a state mandated or a private school mandated curriculum. And we can go into that later, as far as what curriculum is. So if you're homeschooled, there is, depending on the state, because a lot of it depends on the state that you're in the United States. At least I can only speak for what the United States and Puerto Rico does, because we do follow the same, pretty much the same methodology for education. But when you're homeschooled, you're basically saying, my kids are going to learn, if, as from a parent's point of view, from the adult's point of view, the kids are going to learn what they need to learn from school. Sorry about all the weird noises in the back there. But they're going to learn in a different way that's not the traditional classroom environment, and whatever that may be. You could, even if it's not.
What's the difference between traditional environment and whatever way may be shown in at home?
So that actually has changed. That perspective has changed a lot because of the whole issue of virtual learning. So virtual learning is one thing, and homeschooling is a different thing.
Yeah, because virtual learning is bringing the school home, isn't it?
Yes, that's pretty much in really layman's terms. Muggs agrees. Yes, bringing school home, and he didn't like it when I had to take all that attention away from him and focus on school. But yes, that's what it is. We brought the classroom to our homes because we couldn't be in the same place, but technically we were still trying to do the same thing, which was teach and learn in the same environment, as as we would inside of a classroom. So that's traditional learning. You have a teacher, you have a group of kids, you have to learn a lesson, they got to show that they learned it. Homeschooling pretty much does the same thing, in the sense that you have kids that need to learn a specific skill, but how it's taught, how long it takes, that scope and see that timeline changes, the material changes.
Well, the timeline, the time itself, right? It changes immediately and automatically due to the fact that an hour dealing with 30 kids is not the same thing as an hour dealing with 1 to 5 kids. Let's say you have 5 kids in the household that you know what I mean? It's not the same as 30 kids. I've since those, those who are watching this, I'm a trainer. I'm an MMA coach and trainer, and I teach in schools. And it's not the same as when you have 5 than 40.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It's so you have more time to dedicate to them.
Exactly. So there's not only more time to dedicate, you also the student has more time to process it and has more time with the instructor to ask questions. It's
So do
more of
you
a
still beat something into the, I mean, metaphorically, beat information into their head still for an hour? Or is that hour really what you need to beat it into the head of 30 kids? So you do your division and you can bring it down. Or does it depend on the kid? Because I imagine now you can take the time, it depends on the child or the student or whatever. But is it still an hour of math, period? Or is it an hour of math because it's 30 kids? If it's one, then it could probably brought down to like 10.
it all depends on what you're learning. So homeschool, you don't really have a set time frame. You can take the morning to learn something. It could be that one lesson, it can be two lessons, depending on how fast the kid is learning. It all depends on how the progress is. It all depends on who's the one that's teaching. Maybe the person that's teaching decided that they're going to just cover that one lesson and you're done for the day, and then tomorrow we're going to go deeper into something else. So it's like, it's not so much how much you do a day, it's actually more how much you've absorbed, you've learned, and how well you can do to be able to move on to the next level or to the next grade or to the next lesson. So it's like, it's more of a laxed situation, and it really all depends on the environment. Some parents say, I'll be teaching my kids and I'm homeschool, and then if they want to be able to, because some states require, if you're going to be homeschooled, then your child has to take a test, just like in school they have to take midterms or they have to take a test
Well,
at the end of the
that's pretty much what I was going to ask you. How do you know the kid is ready? Or I keep saying kid. I'm sorry, the student. How do you know they're ready for that next level, or on that next level, or even what level they're on? If you are a parent, you're not fucking prepared for this.
Well, there's actually guidelines to help the parents, the homeschooler, right? The parents that are in charge of making sure that their child has education. Right now, there's even schools or online events where, or programs where they say, hey, you want to homeschool your kid? Then you're going to do this, but you're going to do it online, and we'll get you your tutors or whatever. Or here's the program. Make sure that they know this because they have to pass this test. For example, there's a specific test.
Is it
I'm
still yearly? I'm sorry. Is it still yearly? Just like regular school? Man.
Yep. If they want to
Okay.
go into 11th grade homeschool, yeah. Depending on the program too, you have, because there's like different techniques. I believe it's in Montessori. Not quite sure how it works, but you might be advanced. You might be an 11th grade level, let's say English or reading or whatever the case may be, language arts, right? Um, but you're still kind of in ninth grade math, and that's okay. So it's, as long as you pass all the levels, and then you can say, okay, I'm ready for college level because you've passed all the levels that you need to pass. So there's still, in essence, a way that it's standardized, and you have to prove your capacity to be able to move on to the next level. But it's more the environment, right? The environment that you're putting the child in order to learn, the student in order to learn those skills. Now, how deep you go into the skills and whatever the case may be, what specifically you have to go into, that actually depends on um, the program or the school that you're working with. If you're homeschooled, you have a specific program. Maybe your state mandates that they know this is the minimum requirements in order to be able to pass to the new grade, and they have to know this, and this. Because they're homeschooled, they may not be required to learn all of the things, or if they're homeschooled, they might not, they might be even more, which is the case, a lot of the case. These kids that are homeschooled, since it's a less stressful environment, you're not affected by so many other things. You are actually finding a way to join. Hold on a second. So you find a way to participate in this environment, and you actually move on forward, right? So this was easy. It was a lot easier for me to get that one-on-one tutoring. I don't know if you think about a time that if you've ever been tutored anything, or in my case, I might have had a better teacher helping me one-on-one in summer school. For some reason, I had gone through summer school once, especially because of Spanish, because I didn't know how to speak the language. And the fact that I had 3 kids in the class, just 3 of us, that were trying to perfect our Spanish, I took on the whole school year's worth of information in just that month and a half. And I was able to pick it up and excel because it was a completely different environment. And so that's one of the benefits of homeschooling.
It only took you a year?
I couldn't hear you. Yeah, now I got you.
It only took you a year?
No, it only took me 6 weeks 4 weeks of because it was a month of summer school that I took. And that month of summer school helped me understand grammar in Spanish that I couldn't understand the whole school year. And it's because of the time limit. There's only 45 or 55 minutes for Spanish class each day, and that's only 5 days in the week. So
yeah, and when you don't understand the language, you're coming in at 0.
You know, you're thinking that which was even more psychological issue with me. I thought I was coming in at least at a 3, and I find out that I was at a 1. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay. So it was a blow to my ego because I thought I was a smart kid, and I realized I ain't no shit.
I got a couple of things here I'd like to talk on a little bit. Let's start by the simpler things. Is making though you're at home, is making a learning area, not so much make it look like a classroom, but making a learning area important or even helpful. It's like I gave out, maybe I shouldn't have given out some advice without fucking knowing, right? But I told somebody that we were speaking to about this stuff, homeschooling, and I was like, well, why don't you try, just to make sure you can keep a division, between being a parent and being an educator, put on a hat. You have a hat of a specific color, any color, and that's what you're using when you're teaching, and when you're not, then you take it off. I've read articles and seen some videos about people talking about, how they only pick a specific spot in the house in order to do that. Is that beneficial? And I'd like to welcome my brother right there.
Hey, manito.
William.
How's it going?
Fantastic.
What's going on? I feel so weird calling you William, I swear.
You don't have to call me
that. So is that helpful?
Yes, 1,000 times yes. Breaking it down to what we've learned as a teacher, we work with people.
And just to bring it into, since it came into the conversation, it's a coincidence. It was to Golo, to Will, that I told about the whole hat thing.
Oh, and it was absolutely recommended. It was recommended for the online teaching, the online of schooling, or the virtual learning in throughout the pandemic. Experts were saying it. It's always recommended to do for the people who are homeschooled. They're like, duh, this needs to happen. There's a specific, maybe it's a specific schedule within the day that works for that student. It is also a specific area because you want to associate that learning environment. That's why teachers go insane with their classroom. And you would think it's a waste of time. Mira que si bordecito, que si decoraciones, que si lo otro, but you have to make that a positive learning environment. That's why we work so hard on organizing our classrooms. Everything has a purpose. behind it. There's a lot of psychology behind that environment in the classroom, right? So if you're at home and you're doing homeschooling, it is extremely important for them to be able to associate their learning environment. It's kind of like we're going back into a little bit of psychology. Pavlov, have you guys heard of that name? Where
With the
that's
bell.
the one that did the whistle and the
It was a
dogs, and it got
whistle.
to,
Okay.
every time you pet them. And so for those who don't know, guy did an experiment with dogs and a whistle. Every time he fed them, he blew a whistle every time, and the dogs would eat. Then it got to a point where he blew a whistle and the dogs would start salivating because they associated that whistle to food, right? So it's conduct. It's developing that conduct. It also the environment is also affecting. So you kind of like turn on a switch in the child's or the student's brain and saying, I'm in this area, I got to turn on my switch. I'm learning now. And it kind
Because
of,
I mean, because in
separate.
general, it's within their place of comfort. It's within their home,
Right.
but
But
they
it's
still
not
need
actually,
to.
we don't recommend the room, or we don't recommend the place where they would be playing their video games, because then they're going to want to associate that space with video game playing, especially if you have somebody who would be easy to distract it. That's I'm no good with online learning, me as a student. If you remember when I was in college and I had to
You
do
were
an
too
online
close to
class,
solitaire.
I would go straight to
No, and
solitaire.
mahjong.
It was a complete distraction, because I associated that time as my downtime. Instead of me reading or learning, my environment, my switch was in the classroom. That was my learning environment. That was my learning style. Had
I
I
guess, I
set,
guess, I guess Willie and I didn't go through it because we were used to the studio time. Being in the studio was still work time.
so you
So
guys had the work switch.
yeah, so it was already there.
Exactly.
I think it was more of organizing. We're gonna do this, then we're gonna drop this no matter what time it is. We're gonna have our coffee. We're going to watch a movie. We would disconnect and connect, disconnect and connect.
I didn't have that
That
experience.
yeah, I understand.
I didn't
Is that
have that
something
And
that
experience.
can
and
be used
that's
with the kids in the homeschooling?
Say what?
and basically that is what I'm trying not for that to happen to the kids. I don't want them to feel so comfortable that we are just bull, but at the same time, I don't want to feel them too uptight that I don't want to learn.
Right. It's a
You
balance.
know, exactly. And
It's a
the
balance.
way that I am thinking about dividing the house itself, basically, it will be your leisure time will be upstairs. That's where the TV is at. That's where we have lunch, dinner, breakfast, everything we'll do upstairs. When it comes to school, I'll just translate that down here. What I'm thinking about doing right now, I'm looking how to reorganize my living area so it could be a office slash classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And once they walk into that door and they see the difference, they'll be like, okay, I'm not in my house. I am in the classroom.
Correct.
So yeah, I'm looking for furniture that also helps me with that, gives me corners.
Yeah.
So like that it will be a lot more easy to segregate
Mm-hmm.
and to organize.
And it doesn't even have to be like a wall. It could be
No, no.
a screen. It can be a curtain. It can be, anything because if you pull back the curtain, okay, we're chilling. If you pull down the curtain, you close the curtain, okay, we're working. That can
Exactly.
be the switch. And it's because I've worked with kids during the virtual learning. Miss Felicia's, I just can't concentrate. I said, well, where are you at? Where are you? Where's your work area? What does it look like? And they're like, well, I'm on my
Mhm.
bed. And I was like, do you hang out in your bed and play video games in your bed? And they're like, yeah. But some kids work very well from their room because that was their study area. They were used to being in their bed studying. So they were able to disassociate that. But others,
Yeah.
bed meant sitting down and gaming. They didn't have the discipline, or that switch was not turned on. But the dining room table,
Hmm.
was the work area. So I
Yeah.
said, you gotta find a better spot. If the dining room table, or I had some that had siblings that were trying to learn, and you had all the teachers talking at the same time and they couldn't hear anything, it was a hot mess. So I said, do you have it's warm outside. You got a porch that you can hang out in? And they're like, yeah, actually I do. I said, set up the porch. That's your work area. They're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna do that. And they did, and they actually did a lot better. So I recommend it. I do it for myself here. I have a little area that was my classroom. That's like one place. But if you look on this side, I got my head, that's my whiteboard. That's where I would write down things. I might give examples to the kids or whatever. Now I messed up the camera shot. Now if I give examples to the kids or whatever, but it was something that I needed to do in order to be able to separate my home from my workplace.
Hmm.
So I'm not working 24/7, and it's bad enough as a teacher, we're always in work mode. But for my state of mind, I needed to make sure that I separated. So the moment that I passed my desk, that threshold, that invisible line, that to me meant I'm off. Yeah, I clocked out. I'm done.
Okay, I'm sorry to cut it short. We got a lot of stuff to go through. You know what I mean? Not too much time. Um, Keeping on what you said about workload and teaching. So let's bring that into it because
Okay.
from somebody who does it to somebody who's about to have to learn how to do it, I'm gonna say one word: curriculum. Because though it's Apple on the desk, the host of Shoot the Shit is here, and I have to be an asshole at least once. So here
Well,
you
that's what
go.
Apple on the desk is about. It's that elephant in
Curriculum.
the room, right? So the idiom is elephant in the room. It's the thing that everybody knows is there, but nobody wants to talk about. And that's what Apple on the desk does. Talks about those really uncomfortable things, especially when it comes to do with education, learning, and stuff like that. So curriculum is an ongoing debate every year inside schools with any type of experts. You have people that have double doctorates, you have people with master's degrees, you have people with 20 plus years of experience in education, and they still cannot figure
Layman's,
out
break
curriculum.
it down to its most basic for those who don't know. I've heard it for as long as you've been a teacher. For those
You've
that
heard me
don't
fighting
know,
about curriculum. Curriculum is basically the action plan, right? What it is that the kids should be learning throughout that school year to determine whether or not they've got everything they need in order to move on to the next year. And at the same time, make sure that they're ready for the next level or part of that end result. So it's like a short term and long term plan all together. Does
okay,
that make
now
sense?
does well, I imagine homeschooling now the parent has to take that so
They
Well,
have more
that
say.
that that
what I
like Willie,
understand,
what should he be looking for to build the curriculum for the kids?
what I understand that they give us an option. Um, the option is I could use the departmental curriculum and basically go at my pace or our pace because the kids need to grasp the idea. Our pace, and I can use whatever tools I need for them to understand.
So that also means using other curriculums, not having to stick to one, right? That
Exactly.
was something Sandy and I were talking
And
about
and
earlier.
the what I was where I was going to go with the question with how should I approach it, it was more I understand how both of my children are,
Hmm.
and they are totally two different students.
Correct.
Should I cater to each one as a specific student, or should I maintain them in that social triangle where you need to show empathy for whatever this person cannot grasp, and this person needs to show empathy or help for what you can't grasp? Because I also understand that teaching them individually at the long run is going to give them a very complicated social experience when they either go right back to school, they try to go to university, or they try to work, because they
So,
have been so used to working alone and having whatever was offered to them catered to them.
mhm.
And we all three of us know that the world doesn't cater to us.
No.
But at the
So,
same time, we also understand that if our educators would have taken time to possibly teach Joey or teach myself or teach you and the ways that we learn best, could that given us a better opportunity to what we haven't been able to acquire today?
Oof.
okay. Whew. All right. So, this is where the art comes in the art of teaching, right? This is where you see that
Is this where we
where
separate the teachers from the educators?
maybe, but where I'm trying to go is this is where the teacher comes into their teaching style, but at the same time, that's where that emphasis data kicks in as well, because I need to know what my kids don't know so I can give them what they need. But in order for me to actually transfer that and help them understand it, I have 10, 20, 25 different heads that might learn in completely different ways. Okay. So how am I going to? I have a class full of kids. I have, let's put it a simple number, 15 kids, which is a blessing, right? 15 kids in a classroom for me is like, I only have 15 kids in my class. Do you know how many activities I can do with just 15 kids? Listen to
Mm-hmm.
the word I said, just 15, because I'm used to 30. I've had up to 42 kids in my class. And when you have that amount, that's where the learning experience deteriorates. That's the experience that we had as students. We were 40 plus inside of a classroom. We barely fit in the classroom. We were sitting on shelves and whatnot. The teacher was like, look, copy it, memorize it, regurgitate, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one learning style. That never worked for me. Memorization never worked for me, which is why it was a poor learning environment for me. I need to
Me
understand
too.
why, right? So here's the thing. That's when the artistry of or the artistic part of being a teacher comes in. Maybe one child, right? One student likes to learn by seeing things. I got to see it. I got to visualize everything. I need charts to help me kind of put the images together, and I'm going to relate to things by seeing things. But the other child is like, look, I got to write it out. If I don't write it, and physically be part of that
Yeah.
writing
Yeah.
process, I'm not going to be able to understand it. I need to not only see it, but I got to write it, because if I don't write it, I'm not going to remember it. Okay. Does that ring a bell? Okay. So that's when the teacher goes, here you go. I have this chart, right? And I am going to, this is what the chart should look like. This is the lesson. So there's a technique that we are doing right now. That's called the I do, we do, you do, right? So it's basically, I give you the explanation. We're going to practice an example together, right? On the process. But when I'm practicing the example, I'm showing them what the example looks like. I'm explaining it verbally, and I'm having them take notes at the same time. So I'm giving the visual learner something that they need visually. I'm giving the auditory learner something that they need to hear. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving the kinesthetic learner, which is the one that has to do something to do at the same time.
But
So
that
all
sounds
of
like
their
old
learners are
school
covered.
teaching to me. That's how I remember.
But the thing is that they will give you everything. Then you have to do the homework, right? And then you have to do it alone. No, I'm
Mm.
giving you, this is addition. What's addition? Addition is when you put one thing and you add the other thing and you put it together, right? So let's talk about an example. Let's look at one thing. What do we have here? Oh, that's one thing. And okay, what do we have here? Oh, that's another thing. Okay, how many things do we have now? Okay, well, that's together. Very good. That's addition. Now, I want you to do some examples of addition. And here are some things. Is this an example? Yes or no? And they do it on their own individually. Then we talk about it afterwards and review whether you exactly. They would dump the information. I see what Bianca wrote down. They would dump information and you're on your own. That information dump, that's no longer recommended. You still have teachers that do that, but it doesn't, that's when we lose the kids, right? That's when everything goes down. That's when the kids lose interest, that information dump. These kids right now, your students right now do not have the same attention span as we do when we were kids, or we do as adults. And even the adults right now have gotten used to it. If you an old movie, right? Maybe I think it was E.T. Think about E.T. I remember the bicycle thing that they flew. I remember bits and pieces of it. But if I try to watch that whole movie again, I'm dying because of the dialogue and the emotion. It takes too long to develop. I'm like, come on, come on, come on. I got used to the fast pace. That's what these kids have only experienced now. So I got to chunk it up and make it little mini lessons. Make sure that I'm covering every learning style while I'm giving that mini lesson. And the way that I cover it is my artistic way. Though that's when you have to be innovative and figure it out what would be best for you. So if you think I'm doing addition, how can I teach my kids this? Well, if you have a hands-on learner, then maybe what you want to do is bake something and include the lesson while you're baking or you're making breakfast. That's a good way to do a homeschooling lesson, making it relevant to their everyday, but still include it. You know what this is? This is a great example of what addition is, or this is a great example of what this
So
is.
for the better results, yeah, take the time and give the two different curriculums, I guess, or work with them.
Learning styles. That's a learning style thing. So for better results, what I would recommend is for you, first of all, you can go online and you can have the kids take a quiz. What's your learning style? And based on, because this is what I do now, we're just started. Today's my first day with the kids at school. And as soon as they have the computers ready, I put them online. I'm like, okay, we're taking our quiz first. And what's the quiz? What's my learning style? And they've taken this quiz, those of them who've taken class before, they've taken this quiz before, but I know my learning styles. Like, what if it changed? You don't know. I've changed my learning style. What used to work for me before doesn't work for me now.
So let's move to this real quick. In a nutshell, what should students know at specific stages?
Okay, that is part of the curriculum. So depending on, I mean,
curriculum apparently is something that changes on the fly.
It's not an exact science. If you ask, I mean, when I was in school as a teacher, they asked, what is the curriculum? They did not have a direct answer. They said, we have a class here about something that still is not really completely known. How we're giving you this class?
Go low. How old is the eldest?
12.
Okay. He's starting what?
8th grade.
8th?
8th.
Okay.
So he should be working on
right now, roundabout, what is it that if we were all three of us to sit down and write a curriculum for him for the 8th grade, what would be expected?
There's certain skills that he should know in every subject. That's a lot of information I'm trying to give you in a nutshell, right? And it's hard to unpack a lot of that information or to make it to make it concise without going deep into the learning process or being a teacher. Or
everybody out there who's watching this now live and further along down the line, get in contact with a professional, with a teacher, with a professor. and get your stuff straight before you fuck something up that can't be fixed. Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, what should be learned, that's where curriculum comes in. That's where the word standards come in.
Check.
Standards are what dictate what should be learned by what stage and what and so on and so forth. So that's what the standards are for. They
Well,
basically
right
tell you.
now, what I basically took the last year with them because they did the homeschooling from the Department of Education,
Uh-huh.
and
Homeschooling or
they
virtual learning?
virtual school. It was still homeschool because they're at home and they're doing
It's not
schoolwork.
the same thing. That's no. I can't agree
I,
with you.
I I understand where you're coming from because virtually you're getting the lessons from the curriculum and a professional, and everybody was there with all 30, 40 students. Homeschool that I'm doing is only them two, and that's it. I understand that. My focus, I guess, will be not dedicating my time to the unnecessary nonsense. What do I mean with unnecessary nonsense? I guess when they try to teach you that same story, Christopher Columbus crossed the ocean. He got here. They brought some Africans. And, that is the same repetitive story that I'm going to go a little bit deeper because I understand that the story is a lot deeper. And
So you can go deeper.
since I have the time, I'll take advantage of it. And possibly that I could open up their consciousness to when they do get to our age or they get to the 20s, that is the age where people don't give a fuck about nothing. They'll have a clearer conscience that they do need to give a fuck about things. Example, with math, addition, multiplying, percentages, things like that. That right now, I could even teach them how to read a chart. So like that, they understand a bit better what the stocks are. Because I guarantee nobody from our time, we understand stocks. We don't understand marketing unless we busted our asses learning it upon ourselves. I'm going to teach the kids how money works, what money is, what is currency. That is something that they don't teach you. They teach you how to make sure you keep that little dot where it's supposed to be. That way you keep the little comma where it's supposed to be. But they don't teach us what money is. They don't teach us how currency is. They don't teach us none of that.
So you're talking about adding the value of relevancy behind what it is that you're learning.
Exactly, because unless you are going, this is my opinion, unless you're going to be an engineer, per se, unless you're going to be um, someone that actually uses geometry, why should you know how to get the cosine side of a fucking triangle? When have we used that in our adult everyday 9 to 5s everyday life? And
Okay.
whoever used it was possibly building something at home. But how many people build things at home? That's
Mhm.
what I'm trying to say. You spend money, everybody spends money. Everybody uses currency. Everybody uses percentiles. Right now, you know how many people do not know what is the 7% of 10 or what is the 7% of 20? But you get fucking taxed every day.
Every day.
So so why is it that they are taking a month, a whole a piece of a semester to teach things to these kids that a 1% of them is going to use.
Understood.
So
Understood. And
I'm go
agreed. Agreed.
well.
So
That's why.
that
That's
falls
why I
into
yeah the
that falls
curriculum.
into the curriculum and the standards. So should they
Mhm.
know how to do this? Yes. That curriculum or the standard that was included, those standards change. You have a whole group of people that come in together. I'm not trying to defend, I'm just telling you how it works. Because I
Mhm.
agree with you. The only time I would say like geometry or something like that, it was like, when am I gonna ever figure out, why would I need to know how to develop the area of a triangle? Why do I need to know that? Because when I was trying to make a tent, I needed to find out the area of the triangle. I needed to know that it was a practical use that I did not realize I needed until after adulthood. So there are some nuances that you might need. And the committee says, well, you never know. So let's give them at least a basic fundamental so they can have that behind their belt and
But
they
why
can
they do
use
a
it.
they so why do they focus on your you never know instead of focusing on the real?
We
Like
definitely know,
I'm
right?
going to give you a perfect example.
Oh, no, I get it.
Science, biology. They go so little in the actual living being. That's why so many people are so easily persuaded when they hear something that might sound smart, but is not actual, is not true. That's why misinformation is so easy. Misinformation is so easy because what they really need to focus on teaching, they don't. And
Okay.
you eventually you will learn it on your own. You be like, oh shit, how does this work? Why does this work? Not because of school,
Hmm.
you know, like an example, every single Puerto Rican from the island right now that is watching this, if you ask them what is our race, they tell you our race is three. That we are Indian, black, and Spanish. That is so far from the truth. That is extremely far from the truth.
And if they've gotten the traditional education through Puerto Rico, yeah, they're gonna say, and they still do it. You still see images in art, Indio, Taino, Africano,
Exactly. And
But isn't that
irlandés.
where now the parent is supposed to make the difference? And like, okay, do you completely throw the standards out the window, or do you upgrade and refine the standards to better the
well,
knowledge?
well, I think we need to understand that everything that in the educational system, it's a program system. It's a way of programming whoever goes up through it.
Hmm.
That's why it depends where you go. It's depending the program. You go to a public school, they're gonna give you a public program. You go to a private school, they're gonna give you a private programming. You go to the Ivy League Cuello Blanco school, you're going to get that.
Okay.
And I understand that that's why you will see that it is so easy um to misinform. Like if we were to tell people
Because
that,
you're okay. I see what you mean.
because the ones that wanted you to learn this, they made the books. They wrote the books. And
Hmm.
whatever book was written that said that their book
Written,
was
Right.
a lie was destroyed. If there
correct.
were why was it that the Roman Catholics, why was it that the Greeks, why was it that the every single conqueror that they will go into these places, the first thing that they will burn down were the libraries and the schools.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Because
So
knowledge is
what
power, and you gotta
once
read,
you
write, and
what
tabula rasa, right? So here's
and
the
once you
thing:
erase
going
it,
back to what should be done. If that's what you're asking, what should be done? Then what should be done doesn't sound like picking and choosing what they should learn. It's how they are going to be a student. And that's something that I personally do with my students. I don't only teach them what the school requires me to teach them, what the system or the curriculum requires me to teach them. I give them basic and fundamental tools to learn how to be a critical thinker, thinking outside the box, asking questions why. I
Hmm.
have to teach them certain skills because they need them. They need to know vocabulary words according to the level or beyond so they can correctly articulate their questions, so they can know how to ask, find out what that word means, and understand it when they get the definition. Because I don't know if it happened to you, especially when I was learning Spanish. I'd look up the definition of a word I didn't know. Then I had to look up each and every word in the definition because I didn't know that. So then that also applies even in the same language that you do dominate. If you don't have the vocabulary words to understand it, then that's one of the skills that you have. I'm speaking from the language arts point of view, right? So when I teach my kids how to write an essay, there's a specific format, and this is a I guess it's like a pet peeve that I have when it comes to teaching writing. There's a
Hmm.
specific format that needs to be followed per se, that would be considered that's an essay, and this is a kind of essay. But and they focus so
This
hard
is
on that
going by the
structure.
standards.
This is going by the standards. The structure has to be done this way. There has to be a topic sentence. There has to be um, detail and explanation to support your topic sentence. There has to be introductory paragraph, a body, a concluding paragraph. That's all structure that has to be there in order to call it an essay. But my focus, yes, the structure has to be there. I have to teach you how to do that because you need to be able to articulate that question correctly
Okay, but
and
now,
completely. Hold on, I haven't finished. Hold on. But what I do while I'm teaching them this, yes, you got to follow the
uh-huh,
structure, whatever. Now, overall, what does this
uh-huh.
actually mean? What are you
Hmm.
really trying to say? What is it that this person is trying to say?
Hmm.
Understanding that it's a lot more than just that structure. What is the
Hmm.
value behind the words that you're using? You see, the overall message. That's more important. I have a model that I teach the kids. You got to think critically, you got to write consciously, and you got to speak clearly. And you can't do that unless you have been educated in the correct way. And what is the correct way? You finding out for yourself, you investigating yourself. But I can't expect my kid who's 12 years old, who doesn't know how to learn by their own, to do all of those things and me pick and choose their lesson. I can't do it that way. I got to help that one develop the skill. And that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight, over a week, over a whole school year. That's year after
That's
year.
something I keep reading about. Is about parents getting frustrated and everybody's telling them, look, the first year is like the first year of a business. It's investment. There's gonna be headaches. Get into the flow and everything will just Willie, you were gonna say
Uh-huh.
something?
Yeah, I was gonna say something.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were explaining about the language. That
Right.
when you learned something in Spanish, you needed to look up what it meant,
Mhm.
right? Okay. I once, and this is something I learned not too long ago. What they told us that when we were speaking wrong, we weren't speaking wrong. We weren't speaking Spanish. We were speaking Taino.
Okay.
A lot of
You need
words
to you
like
need to be more
hurutungu,
specific.
la chola, things like that. That eso, no seas disparatero. No, those are words that the indigenous learned, or the indigenous were the ones to use, and the Spaniards started telling, no, don't use that.
Okay.
Y empezaron a decir que eran disparate.
Mhm.
Ah, tú lo que estás diciendo es un disparate. It is true because you're not speaking the proper Spanish.
Spanish. Right.
You're not,
But that's
but
that's a code thing. That's
And it's
not
but
constantly
you
happening. I mean, shit,
expressing
people accept parking now. And it's estacionamiento. Parking es ponerle culo donde no va.
supuestamente exactly that's where we have to also where do we control this? Why? Because
where does it stop?
when it was using our Taino words into the Spanish vocabulary, it was a blasphemy. But you want to fucking use English words into it? Oh no, yeah, bring it in. Un
Right.
flashlight, I know
Right.
hamburger, un
So then
sandwich. You know what I'm
so then
saying?
when
It's like
you so then an educated person would say, okay, if I'm speaking Spanish, that would not be accepted because I'm speaking Spanish. Now, there's also something as far as the environment is concerned. You got to know your audience. Who was speaking? Who are you speaking to? Were you in a formal place? Were you in the street talking to your friends? Where was your environment? Now, this is language arts. This is my shit. This is what I do. This is how also, So here's the thing. An educated person would say chola. Why do you say chola? Well, that's what we say, that's how everybody knows it the way where I come from, right? Okay. Where did that word come from? So that inquisitive mind will cause you to investigate, which is that basic fundamental of asking why and then researching. That's a skill that as a student you need to develop, and that happens year after year, learning
So
how to go
what's
deeper.
better? To wait for their curiosity or to create the curiosity? Because it's already a given.
Always create.
Right now, be it the teacher, be it the parent, whoever is educating, the educator has to be very responsible. What you
Absolutely.
do can have irreparable damage. You know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So going back, with that being said, what would be the responsible way to start a curriculum? I don't want this thing to end without, the listeners getting an idea of, okay, my kid is here, so let me give them this type of science and this type of English and this type of whatever the fuck, and you know what I'm saying? Where is it that they should be? If
How to
there's any way of defining that.
no how to start a curriculum, how to create a curriculum, how to pick and choose a curriculum. Why reinvent the wheel if you're not sure where to go? Always look for another model. Now, here's where your 2 cents, your responsibility, your um I guess it would be your concern about where your child education is going plays in. If you see that there is this bone or framework that you want to call it a skeleton or a curriculum, then call it a skeleton. And you say, I think that, yeah, addition is important, but multiplication is going to help them further along. So I got to add that, right? So here, the bone was addition, but multiplying is a higher level. But I
Mm-hmm.
can't multiply without knowing how to add. It's not going to work that way. You know what I mean? Will they realize that they've already did an advanced level of adding by multiplication? Maybe when they're late, maybe later on. But at that moment, while they're learning, while they're in the thick of it, they're just learning how to multiply, right? So the question, going back to your question, how do you choose? How do you start? You need to understand what is needed. Now, Gondo had mentioned something really important, the relevance behind what they're learning. They should not just stop at Taino, Español, y Africano. There's more to it. He knows that. So, as the educator, he needs to make sure that okay, they say this, this, and this, and they say, meaning this is the book, this is written, we're taking this book, this is approved, right? Everybody, yeah, does it meet the standards of approval? Sure. But now let's actually go back into this. Look at all these people saying this is what happened in history. So is this right or is this wrong? That's critical thinking. That's argumentative thinking. That's a basic skill, once
Mhm.
again, that goes back. So what the lesson is about, how they learn, or what examples you use to be able to teach the lesson is should be up to the parent, what they want to expose their child to. But the basic skills that an educated person should need to survive is to be able to reason, question, and investigate without taking face value or just because I told you so, which
Which is
is
what we
what
were
the way they
talking
taught
about
us.
before we even started, the fundamental skills.
Yes, the fundamental skills. So me personally, if I were homeschooling my children, which I hope we get to do, I would like to homeschool my kids for their primary but fundamental grades. Yes, I would like to homeschool them until they're like, but maybe second grade. I want to give them good, strong head start. Okay. Do I want them in schools afterwards? Maybe I do. Maybe not. Does it have to be that they have to be in school? They can still socialize with other people, be with other people. Maybe, maybe
Well,
not
you
their
know what? That's
sports
something that came
activities.
out a lot in the studies that I was doing about before this podcast for this
Uh-huh.
podcast. And they're like, well, my kid, people who have homeschool kids, who have
Hmm.
homeschooled all their kids and their kids already in college or graduated, whatever. They're like, my kids were in everything. There was more time. So
There
they
was
were in
more time.
taekwondo, they were in soccer, they were violin, they were doing this, they were doing that. So socializing, there is no problem with that.
I was in a public school from the first grade to 12th, and I am one of the most antisocial people you could ever meet.
Me too.
So
But I was too, and I'm not antisocial.
That's
So
why
this
we,
is,
we hey,
huh?
2 out of 3 wins and pass.
True,
Statistics.
true.
You see, if they
But
want to
okay, and
teach
there's
you
an
that in
example of
school,
statistics right there, right?
there
Fundamentals.
you
I'm,
go.
So,
I'm just going
but
Statistics.
through the notes real quick. Yeah,
okay.
just places like Barnes. This is just a little bit of information for everybody out there. Places like Barnes and Noble and Adobe, um, they're companies and entities that give discounts to teachers. If you are homeschooling your kids, you are also eligible for those same discounts. And like
Yeah.
I think we spoke on it earlier. There's a lot of money that teachers invest in their kids.
To
You
be
know,
able to
the only
find the right
difference now
mentor.
is that now you got
I
to pay
just,
for it
I
yourself.
just, I just invested $1,200, and I haven't even bought in books.
But it's invested, people. That's
Oh
that's
yeah,
that's the key word right there.
That's the right
I
attitude.
didn't say spent.
No,
I
no,
said
no.
invested.
That's correct.
Buying $200 sneakers for them on the first day of school, that's spending.
Oh
That's
yeah,
not investing.
exactly.
Uh, I think we touched this real quick. Just a keynote: accept that you need help and get a tutor.
Every teacher should do the same thing. And that's one of the hardest things. Speaking as a teacher, teachers are the hardest people to teach. And you can attest to that. Teachers are the worst students in the sense that we have this image that's pushed onto us. We have to know it all.
Hmm.
So the moment that I have to learn something, right? I feel inadequate as a teacher. Don't tell me because you're showing me that I'm inadequate. I'm doing something that I've been doing for the X amount of time. This usually happens for the older teachers have been, I've been doing this for X amount of years. I'm not willing to change. A
Right.
a good teacher or a responsible teacher, I don't want to say good for bad. A more responsible teacher understands that being teachable is part of being a teacher as well. You never stop learning. You're always permanently a student. Teachers should always stay a student. Everybody should always stay a student. Every human being
Yeah.
is learning something. You should always have something to learn. So if you're not sure about something, Ask, research, investigate. Include the kids in the investigation. I don't know how to do this. I don't understand what this means. What can you find out?
Let's figure it out. Yeah, no doubt.
Let's figure, include them in their learning process and not, okay, te voy a decir cómo es que es esto. No, vamos a averiguar lo que es esto. Ah, ahora yo puedo aprender contigo. That changes the whole thing. That changes the whole perspective. That little word, en vez de decir, te voy a decir, vamos a ver, vamos a aprender. We're gonna
Yeah,
find. We're gonna learn
giving them a little power goes a long way. I have, for those, 'cause I know you guys know, right? But I had an after school program years ago, teaching hip hop, all four elements: breakdance, DJing, b boy, and everything. And there was this one kid that was just a real fucking pain in the ass. He was, there's no other word for him, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, I think I know the perfect way on how to fix him. I was like, you know what? It's lunchtime. I gotta go get something to eat. You're in charge. It's like, what? I gave him the keys and I was like, bye. You're in charge. And I just walked away. True, I was hiding behind the apartments. I didn't get anything to eat. I just wanted to see what he'd do. And by the time I got back, everything was cleaned. Everybody was working. Whoever was doing homework was doing homework. It was better than, more disciplined than if I was there. It was wonderful. And that changed everything. So I think it falls into the same thing. Yeah, and involve them in.
So that's what they call
involve them in the community, everybody. That's also something that's being forgotten. And something, because we got to start closing up, something that I saw, well, actually that I read, I don't have the reference exactly where I got it from right now because there was just so many things. But what a lot of people agreed on was, you figured it out. As a parent, you figured it out. You built your curriculum or your game plan or whatever it is you want to call it. You know what I mean? What it is and how it is you're going to do it. Don't look to the side. You got to be like a racehorse with blinders on. You know your goal with your kids. And like you said, you know your kids better than anyone else. So don't second guess yourself, which is why I think, especially now after this conversation, why actually building a curriculum, even if it's your own from scratch, is very important. So this way you can, like, this is the game plan. I'm going forward. Boom, that's it. Don't compare yourself. They keep saying, don't compare yourself to regular school. Don't compare yourself to what this other person is doing with their kids, what they did with theirs. That's theirs. That's not yours. I mean, that's something that should be every day. And not just, in homeschooling, everybody in life, be you.
Fundamentals. Those are the fundamentals. But here's the thing. The purpose of the curriculum, when you build a curriculum, you got to start with your end goal. You got to start at the end and see how you're going to get to that. How is it going to get to? My goal
reverse engineering.
You got to reverse it. You got to reverse engineer it. Okay. I know that by the end of this time, I feel that the kids should have this information, this information, this information. How do you know when or what the information is? Basics. If there's growth, there's success. It doesn't matter what level they're placed in according to those standards, right? If there is growth, if you see that your student, right, is reading more fluently, is putting together more complex sentences, is investigating more, is going through the math faster, is actually connecting what they learned with the math with a real world situation. That's success. That's growth. So yes, if there is growth, there is success. If there, and that as a teacher, there are times that I've had horrible years that none of the standards were really solid in any of the kids. There was a mess, and because we sometimes get tunnel vision to, well, we got to do this, we got to get them ready for the test, they didn't pass the test, oh my god, where these kids are failing, or they're basic or below the average, and blah 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 blah. But did they learn something more than did they when they first started? You see what I mean? Is there a
Okay, hold
standard?
on. Let me. I know we're not short of time, you know what I mean, but we're not trying to make a 3-hour thing out of this.
Right.
But okay, I'm trying to look for the exact word. You know where you want your kid to be by X or Y time. You give them a grace period, right? Because everybody learns different, and you're going to take advantage of the fact that you have the extra time to teach them, blah, blah, blah. Is there such a thing as flunking your kid in the homeschool to like where you're honest with yourself? Like, okay, by now you should be here. You're not. Fuck you. We're starting all over again. Or at least where it's needed. Okay, we're gonna have to go from day one with you because you are just not grasping this.
Maybe day one, or maybe another way. Perfect example. I've gone through a lesson, we've taught, we've practiced, we did this, we did the other thing. The reason why I give a test is not only to be able to give them their grade. That's not what a lot of people think. It's just their grade. It's like,
You want to see where they're at, right?
The test is for me to see where they're at. Did they understand it? Right? I got to break down. I got to look at it. And if I look at the test and I see that there was one part of the test that they all butter, it was easy, I know they got it. But if there was that one part that everybody got no higher than 3 out of 10, that's a skill I got to go over again and do.
Well, okay,
you see what I mean?
In Willie's case, that both kids are in 2 different grades. How can you? Where's that line that tells you stop, go back, and review this?
It all depends on where they're at. So
but that makes sense what I just said.
Yeah. So for example, if we're doing math, right? If you follow the state curriculum, right? El cuadro curricular, ¿verdad? De matemática de Departamento de Educación de Puerto Rico. Okay, so that's just the curricular framework for math in Puerto Rico. Let's say that, for example, right? In 6th grade, they should be working on, they should still be working on their basic components and this and the other thing. But in 7th grade, they should be working on pre-algebra, right? So let's say one that's in 6th grade has to know how to do 2 to 3 digit multiplication and division, or long division. These are skills that they need to know how to do. But in algebra, they should already know how to do that. So you can take that same lesson of division and multiplication and addition. Let's practice. For the 7th grader, that's a review. That's practice. Okay, yeah.
But,
I know how to
pero
do
yo lo
division.
digo más, I say it more like, okay, if you give the student 10 questions and they got 6 of them right, is it okay to continue, or should it?
What is the standard for you?
No.
Are you accepting 60% as passing? Is that something that you would accept? So you see what I mean? With
okay, but is it being? This is where my part of my curiosity is it being accepted or not accepted by the standards that a lot of homeschoolers are already against? Or is it by the standards of what's expected, what the human necessity in today's society? Is it under the acceptance of the parent, who right now is the educator? You see what I'm saying? There's 3 different ways you can.
I'll give you my opinion. The reason why I wouldn't accept that 60%, it's because I understand that the more I progress, that is going to be needed. And if they didn't really get the idea when I put it more complex, because that's what's going to happen, it's going to become complex. That 6 is going to become a 3.
Do you think it would be temptation because it wouldn't be for me, but do you think it'll be temptation for the parents to um want that perfect grade? Kind of like we've all remember we had spoken about this, Sandy, earlier. People either living their sport dreams through their kids or reliving their life through their kids, you know what I mean? So now they get to relive their academic life that they did or did not do through their kids. Do you think it'll be like a temptation to those type of people to know it has to be perfect?
Well, technically,
It
I
can be.
feel it can't, because if that person wants to live the life they couldn't through their kids, first of all, they're doing a wrong on their child.
I agree.
They're doing a wrong for their child. That's first of all. And second of all, um, hey, it was your life to live. Me personally, I wouldn't accept, and I personally, because I do this upon myself personally. If they don't show me at least in three forms or ways that they understand, I'll stay on that lesson for a year because
That's educating. That's not teaching.
I want them to understand. I want them to just look at it and get it. But for me, I understand that the more you practice, the easier it becomes. I'm not down with. I'm not the. If you're talented, yo, talent could take you to a certain place, but discipline and fucking hard work that overrides talent any day.
Beautiful. So yeah, I agree 100% with Will. I agree. Is that he has the right idea in when it comes to the kids as far as where do you stop, where do you go, what is the overall goal? The overall goal is that those kids have complete confidence in the skill that they know. So
Exactly.
that should be the end goal. Whether they got 6 out of 10, whether they get 2 out of 10, whether they get 10 out of 10, do they have confidence in the skill that they know? Because the more confidence they have in what they know, the more open they're going to be to wanting to learn more, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The more open they're going to be to wanting to learn more. It's just like my learning experience training. When I finally allowed myself to be teachable, where I trusted, and it's the trust thing. Now, the good thing, the thing that you have to the advantage, and it could be a disadvantage depending on the kids and the relationship that you have with your child. Your kid has to trust you. I have to develop a rapport with my student
I'm gonna excuse
before my
myself for a
student can
few
trust
moments.
that
I'll
what
be
I'm
right
teaching
back.
them is right. Okay. But your kids know that they're not going to be led astray by you, but they have to trust that they know that you're going to be not only making sure that they're going to learn what they need to learn, but you're going to be patient when they can't get it. And they have to trust that thought process, and they
Hmm.
have to trust that you're going to help guide them through their thought process until they
At
get it
least,
right.
at least we got the experience of I did get to do some type of homework with them. So they do have that experience that they know that I'm not the one to jump down their neck or
Yeah, because
um
my learning experience, if I didn't spell something right or if I didn't get something right, was el cabezón on the head. My grandmother would take the big cabezón pencils, the ones that had the big erasers, and
and
she
just
would hit me
smack
in
you.
the head
Yeah,
with it. To the point that when I'm studying, if you see me, I'm tapping my forehead with a
yeah.
pencil because I'm trying to help, I'm trying to focus. And that's
Well,
that's I'm like literally
I
traumatized
hate
with
those
it.
fucking pencils.
Those
well,
pencils will help.
I had an experience last year with Damien. Um, his skills with math was very, very off. And I'm going to elaborate a bit more to all these people that are listening. And if you think that by doing your child's homework or by sitting down with your child and giving him the answers, you're helping, you're not.
It
My
wasn't the
kids'
teacher that said it.
moms, my kids' moms was that kind of a mother that she would wait the day before and she would do my kids' project. She was the one telling them the answers. So what happened? I don't believe in that. I believe
You're
in you
hurting your child.
learn, yeah, you learn, you express. When it was their time to express, he was getting frustrated and he was getting D's and he would start crying because he was frustrated because he wasn't getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why he wasn't getting it was because his mother never let him process the problem, look for a solution. So, me being the hard headed person that I am, I took upon myself to every day fill no less than 3 pages worth of multiplication and division of 3, 4, and 5 sequential numbers. I would have my mom sit with him, or I would have my mom go over it once he was done because I was taking class.
Mm-hmm.
But I made sure that I did those math problems, and I made sure that when I came back, he saw me check them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to stop you right there and I'm going to interject
Okay.
because what you said is so freaking important with the success of your child learning. Your child needs to know that you're paying close attention to what they're doing. And it's not waiting for those morning cards or the midterms or whatever. It's a daily, weekly, they need to know that you're on it because you're creating an expectation and you're holding them accountable for what they do or what they don't do.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot stress enough that I mean, I already gave my kids homework today. Today's day one. I have eighth grade throughout. This is the first school year I only have one grade to teach. And I'm like, I'm blinking because I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with all this time? And I'm like, I'm gonna have fun with my kids. I'm gonna be able to, and that's what my principal said. She said, Miss Felices, I don't want you worrying about who did what he did. I just need you to teach. I need you to get these kids where they're supposed to be, have fun, and teach. And I'm like, you're giving me permission to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm in a new place right now. So I'm kind of like flying high. You know, I'm like, I get to just teach and do activities. And I only have 15 kids in my classroom. This is day one. 5 out of the 15 came in today, which is speaks about the
If you're
demographic of the
homeschooling, how
kids.
do you give homework?
Huh?
If you're homeschooling, how do you give homework?
It's just
Well,
called work.
It's just called work.
it's just called work. I love it. It's just called work. Yeah. And homework is what? Just to check to see if you know what we did that day. That's all that homework
Mm-hmm.
is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be something that keeps the poor kids 6 hours after school of spending 8 hours in school. That's why people
Okay.
say homework should be banned. No, homework should not be banned because you have to be able to be accountable. You have to be able to learn what work ethic is to
Mm-hmm.
understand that you're going to be left alone to get your job done. And you got to make sure that you do it right.
So is it
That's
also,
what
in your
homework
opinion,
translates to.
recommended to like keep a schedule? Because that's something else that I saw that was very divided within
So
the
that I think
homeschooling.
depends on your learners, right? Are your learners better? And remember, they're growing. Their brains are changing as they're growing. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe your young learners might work better in the morning, but your later young teenagers might work better afterwards because their
I
But if
was
brains
you're gonna
are
teach
functioning.
fundamental skills, I'm not taking one side or the other. But if you're teaching fundamental skills, part of that fundamental skill is becoming part of a workforce. Workforce don't start at 9, 10 in the morning when
Unless
I
you
you
work
had
executive,
getting up.
sir.
I have another question. Like just to like piggyback on his question. Now, the standard of scheduling, it's important. Typical schools do 3 to 5 materials daily.
Materials, subjects?
Subjects. Yeah, subjects.
Okay.
If I was to break that down daily, would that
Like one
give
a
a
day.
different? Exactly. Let's say I give language just Mondays. Tuesdays it'll be math. Nothing
How long are
else.
you working on
Wednesday.
it?
That's what my question. Well, I guess my question really was, um, would that give them a better experience?
Maybe.
Being that we are dedicating a whole day to a
Okay, so take
specific
yourself
frame of
back.
thought.
Take
Uh
yourself
huh.
back to college. When
Okay.
you were in college,
Uh huh.
you had a class that was maybe once a week or twice a week. How
Uh
did that
huh.
work for you in your learning process? You spent
Well, in my
about 2, 3 hours once a week on that one subject. You might have worked on other materials throughout the week regarding that, but you had other classes that you had to dedicate time to. How did it work for you?
well, I understand that it didn't work too well, but it wasn't because of the.
The
It was because
schedule?
I didn't give a fuck. Let's
Ah,
let,
okay.
let's just
So here,
let,
here
let's
would
just.
be my suggestion. If you were
Oh,
to adopt that kind of schedule where you have
okay.
one subject a week, let's say that, for example, Mondays is language, Tuesdays is math, Wednesdays is science, Thursdays is social studies, and Friday, and those are your four core classes anyway, right? And Friday you have something else, right?
Uh huh. Uh-huh.
I would make sure that there was an element of each subject within the next day's lesson. I'm not telling you to review what you did the day before. If Monday is language, right? So you got Spanish on Mondays, or maybe you do Spanish and English so that you can
Mhm.
compare and contrast the languages. Because I'm a strong believer as a language arts teacher that when you perfect one, you're learning and perfecting the other. So if you can
Yeah.
compare them, and you can say, hey, in Spanish we did this, but in English we do that. Oh, that's going to confuse me. Not really. Once you make one really solid, now you can tell the difference between one and the other, and you can separate. But
No,
Hmm.
one
and,
has
and
to
both.
be,
And
and
I
if
think that, and taking advantage of the bilingual that they already are. I mean, if you have already a bilingual child, even if it's just understanding and speaking, you
your
only
kids
need
already
one
have
more branch.
75% of the world
Exactly. A lot of
under
people
the belt.
a lot of people limit themselves to that. He could
Yes.
speak. If they could speak, they could understand. That's good enough. Nah,
No, no, no.
teach
They got
them.
to be
Teach them how
strong
to
in both
write.
languages.
Hmm.
Be
Yeah.
strong in both languages. So let's say
But
you do that.
uh huh.
But then
Uh huh.
in math, you know how
Mm-hmm.
you're focusing on the fundamentals or whatever the case may be. So an
Mm-hmm.
activity that you can do in math is tell them to write a paragraph about a hypothetical situation within that math problem. You see what I mean? It's still math, but you're writing,
Blending one thing with the next.
blending one into the other. So then we got science. Science, you have to do math in order to be able to break down what the hypothesis is. So you're still writing out your hypotheses, reading or language, math, and now science, because you're putting scientific thinking into it. In history, you're going to find a historical event related to that same scientific experiment that you were working on Wednesday, and you're going to write down an argument and do an argumentative paragraph about how it was before and how it was then. You're still mixing math. You're still putting in statistics. You're still that's math. Reading, language. You see what I mean? You're taking because all subjects are interdisciplinary. So find a way of making sure that's once again, I'm going back to the artistry, the art of teaching. This is an
Hmm.
art. You have to be not only an educator, but you also have to find a way to make it fun and relevant so
Hmm.
that they want to get in there. They want
As
to
long
do
as you're being let's see if I understand. As long as you're being responsible and you're not handing out, as you said earlier, misinformation,
correct.
there is no doing it wrong. There's doing it your style.
That's right. teaching styles will
Once
differ.
again, as long as you're being responsible and you're giving the information, preparing the student for X or Y.
Correct. Ideally, yes. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, guys, any last comments?
Wish your teacher friends, your kids' teachers, the parents who are teaching luck this year. Allow yourself, your kids, and your teachers grace. This has been a hell of a year and a half, almost 2 years that we've gone through. As a species, I think that there's been a lot of learning. We're learning a lot. We haven't learned enough. We're still learning. But the truth of the matter is, what William wants to do with his kids is really important. And it's something that I think that this whole pandemic virtual learning environment has opened the eyes to those people who are in charge of that curriculum, in charge of those standards, in charge of funding and education. Kind of like, oh, this is what the teachers have been talking about. Because all the things that he's worried about are things that we as teachers have been screaming for decades that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be changed.
And it's
It's not
that, and going to the only thing in this world that hasn't changed has been education. The way that they set up a classroom, the way that is the only thing that hasn't changed, and I really, really think it's something that really needs to evolve. And
correct.
and not have these teachers, not educated, but teachers, go into these schools just to make money, but just because I get 3 months off vacation, don't. If that is the case, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Work at McDonald's. You could make $15
To
an
be
hour
fair,
flipping burgers.
to be
You know what I'm
fair,
saying?
I told my own colleagues in college the same thing. I've said it. If you're gonna come here to waste time and do it, and you're in this profession para los 15 y los 30, which is translates to your paycheck, then do me and your future students a favor and change your major. I
Yeah.
need colleagues that are willing to help me help these kids learn. Don't waste time. So I give
I,
a shout out to the newer teachers, the ones who just graduated. You guys have learned so much more than what I had to learn, and I graduated 10, 11 years ago. Okay, it's the truth. So whenever I get a brand spanking new teacher to help mentor, I'm like, "What'd you learn? What'd you get?
Mm-hmm.
What'd they tell you? I want to know because I didn't get to be in that classroom with you. What
Right.
method are we talking about? You said this. What does that mean? Can you show me? Is there something new?" And then I get to share my experience within the past 16 years as a teacher.
Which once again, why I say everybody who's out there homeschooling, not virtual school, homeschooling, ask for help, yo. Learn,
Ask,
learn, learn, learn. And
ask.
one thing, guys, don't hang up after the broadcast. You know what I mean? So we can keep talking. Um, but before we're over, because this is something that I'm not happy it came through, but I am very proud of, and I would like Will, my brother, Gorlo. I feel weird calling you Will. you know, Will, as a single parent, yes, everybody who's watching out there, all the guys out there, fucking fight for your kids. You can
damn
guys
right.
do this shit. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Damn right.
Do this shit.
a child
I'm
needs a
very
parent that
proud
loves
of
them.
my brother Golo. Extremely proud of him. Golo, if there was just anything that you can tell the guys out there that are in or have been in the situation that you've overcome, and right now you're taking that next step into their schooling as a single dad, tell somebody, and we'll close it up with that.
Mm.
Well, the only thing I could really tell you is that ever since I've had my kids, I've slept great. I sleep like a baby. Why? Because I don't have to worry. What are they going through? What is their mother having them go through? You have them. I could just pop my door and they're right there.
Hmm.
And these two that you see right in the screen, they saw me suffering my first 8 years of not having my kids with me.
Yep.
They were there that first New Year's that I didn't have my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand every single parent every single dad that doesn't have their kid, I understand you. Now, don't go out there trying to get your kids just to make yourself look like a good dad.
There's work. What would you say?
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot of work, and it's even more work for us guys for the simple fact that we don't have that female touch. We don't have that maternal instinct. We don't know how to hug. We don't know how to kiss. We don't know how to, and we have to learn all these things.
But it can be learned.
Oh, of course. I'll teach you right now how to hug and kiss a child. Just open your heart.
Yes, sir.
Instead of
Say that
opening
one
up
more
your
time. Just
wallet,
what?
open your heart. The thing
Beautiful.
about it is that a lot of dads, we are used to opening our wallets. That's what society teaches us.
Mm-hmm.
That's what baby mamas open their mouth for. Give me what's in your wallet. When you want to become a father, the only thing you have to do is open your heart. Open your heart to your kids. That's it.
No doubt.
Oh,
And with that, we're
I'm
gonna
done with
sign
that.
out. Guys, don't hang up when
One,
we keep talking shit. Everybody
uno.
out there, we check you.
Se fue gordo.
Sí, se fue, gordo.